Alright, I have returned, and I have returned to this big old Baratheon box being released. They finally did it. The joke for years was that the Baratheon expansion box was never going to be released because of the Baratheon tax or whatever. But no, it's actually here. Maybe the joke will end up being on Targaryen. They'll announce the Targaryen box and then they'll announce 3rd edition right after. That used to be the joke about Baratheon. Anyways, this also came with a little restricted list update, and they restricted, I think, what was it? Drown God Fanatic and Sea of Blood. So, as always, not going as far as I think they should. Um, the restricted list to me always feels like it's at least one step behind where the game actually is, but it's definitely better than nothing. I think maybe, I don't know. I guess I won't sit here and talk too much about the restricted list. I will just say I'm really glad for Sea of Blood to be restricted. I mean, that I think needed to happen pretty much right away. It became pretty apparent to me pretty quickly that that agenda was too stupid, and unfortunately was allowed to run around unchecked for months at a time. But now it's finally been dealt with. So, moving onwards from that, I'm going to talk briefly about my planned upcoming content. Just like with the Greyjoy box, I'm going to try and make decks with the new agenda for every faction and play them to try out the new agenda. The Prince That Was Promised, I'm going to be doing Prince That Was Promised decks for all 8 factions. And then I'm also going to show off 4 different Baratheon decks to try and showcase some of the new cards as sort of like in-between videos between uploading all those Prince That Was Promised decks. And the 4 Baratheon decks are going to be like, I don't know, I guess you'll just see when I upload them. So anyways, I got that coming up. I'm going to finish the sort of cycle of decks that I was on. I'm going to do like the Targaryen Banner of the Sun, Tyrell Banner of the Watch, and finish those out, and then I'll do the Prince That Was Promised. So that'll be fun. Maybe those videos will start tomorrow. Maybe they'll just start whenever I feel like it. But let's go ahead and start reviewing the cards in this box, because this video is probably already going to be over an hour. And if I stop talking for a minute, it's because I'm just taking a drink of coffee. So let's look here. Acolyte of the Flame. Reaction after the draw phase begins. Kneel Acolyte of the Flame to look at the top 2 of the opponent's deck. You can put them on the bottom. This is basically a card that you would play because it's 2 cost, 2 icons, 2 strength with the R'hllor trait. And I don't think it really makes the cut because deck space is pretty tight at this point. But if you ever play it, that's why you play it. The ability's bad because you have to kneel the character to potentially do nothing or potentially even help your opponent. I mean, you don't actually know that if you put those 2 on bottom, then you're not moving. You're not going to be like letting them draw 2 cards that are even worse than the 2 that you put on bottom for you. So the ability is quite bad. If she didn't have to kneel, then it would be a nice little ability. But having to kneel the character makes it not worthwhile. A Lester Florent, 4 cost, 3 strength. Florent Lord R'hllor with 2 abilities. Reaction after House Florent enters play, draw card, limit once per round. And then interrupt when a Lester leaves play. If you control another R'hllor character, then you can kneel opponent's character. If this card is used, I think it will be because of the draw ability. The kneel interrupt seems bad because you don't want to kill a 4 cost to get that ability, and the opponent can also play around it. Like, they'll just declare their military challenge last if they're afraid of you, like, using the interrupt to kneel an important character before it can do something. It could be relevant on Valar Morghulis turns to kneel an opponent's character that survived, but overall feels not that great. Especially because it's on a 4 cost character compared to the core set Shireen, who costs 2, so you don't really care about killing her. But the draw reaction might be useful because I was looking and the Vanguard Lancer is a House Florent character, so you could actually get some fairly consistent draw out of this guy. Like, if he sits on the board, I think it's viable to make a deck where he could just keep drawing a card every turn, and maybe he's okay then. I give him a maybe. One interesting thing to note about him is that you could potentially kill him with you could use him with Sir Emery Florent, and you can kill Emery and then kill Alester with Glamour to use Alester's ability and return Sir Emery Florent to play, and then you can use Sir Emery Florent again next round and use Alester's Interrupt as well. Now, is that ever actually good? Probably not, but it's a kind of a dank combo that I noticed. Angui the Archer. We got some new Brotherhood stuff with this box, which is nice, because I'm coming up on the Brotherhood Without Banners agenda pretty soon here. And this guy will probably be in those decks, because he's definitely good if he has his ability active. 2 cost, 2 strength with a non-kneeling ability. Quite nice. Then we have Azora High Reborn, which is probably bad because it's a 3 cost attachment. A 3 cost attachment that you put on your own character. And I don't think there's... Well, I take it back. Queensguard is good, right? There's one attachment with this profile that was actually good, and that was Queensguard. And to be fair, this is along the lines of a 3 cost attachment that's worth playing, letting you use your best character multiple times per turn. But it's only on attack and not on defense. So I'm still not entirely sure about this card, but I think what you can do is just try to put it on the core set Robert Baratheon and then attack with him 2 or even 3 times every turn, and that actually makes this attachment worth it. I think that's the time where this attachment's actually potentially worth having in your deck. So maybe like a core set Robert Baratheon Prince That Was Promised deck, and you run like 2 of these, and whenever he comes out you slap one on him, and you have a bunch of Allure characters and you go to town. That could be a thing. A Cask of Ale, 0 cost event. After you win a power challenge, choose 2 cards controlled by the same player. Move up to 2 power from one of those cards to the other. So this is bad. Never play it. That's the end of that. However, I did see people saying that what people are doing is they're using it to move 2 power from somebody's faction card onto their plot card, and then the power gets discarded when they flip a new plot. That seems wrong to me. Did not know that you could move power onto plot cards, but I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. But I'll say that if that's how this works, that's almost certainly going to get errated. There's no way that was intended. We have Bastard of Robert, 2 cost, 1 strength power. While you control Robert, reduce the cost to marshal Bastard of Robert by 2. And then after Bastard of Robert enters play, if you control a king character, draw a card. So this is a playable, loyal 2 cost that can give you card draw. So I'm on the fence with this card. It's nice to see Baratheon get a playable chump character, but on the other hand, you're just getting a 1 strength power icon for your trouble, and it doesn't do anything else. I guess it's okay, because I've been playing Stormland's Maester, or Storm's End Maester, whatever it's called, and I actually like that character, and he literally doesn't do anything besides be a 2 cost character that draws cards, so this card's probably fine. You can throw this in if you've got 2 or now potentially even 3 kings to help enable the draw. Bearskin Cloak, Stark attachment, 1 cost. Attached character gets +1 strength, and if they're a Mormont character, they get stealth. This is pretty unnecessary, I think, because what's her name? Alysanne already has stealth, and you can't put it on her anyways. She's no attachments. So what are you going to do? You're going to put this on... I guess you could put it on the Bear Island Scouts, but I don't think it makes the cut, really. Between like Arya and Alysanne, do you really need more stealth in Stark? And Mirror Read? Like, it feels unnecessary. So I don't think it's really worth playing. Then we have the Botley Crew. 3 cost, military, 3 strength, Greyjoy character here. House Botley and Raider, so it's not Ironborn. Reaction: after an opponent collects income, return 1 gold from that player's gold pool to the treasury. So it's just a flat -1 gold for the opponent whenever it's in play. And it's non-unique, so you can have more than one of them out there. So it's just a choke card. I don't like it. I don't know why they felt the need to print this. One thing that's really nice with this edition of the game is that choke hasn't really been a thing, and it was in first edition, and it's pretty miserable. It's not fun. It's not interactive. It's a really not good mechanic for the game, I would say, to have decks based around doing that. Unfortunately, I've seen people reporting playing like Night's Watch Banner of the Kraken with this card, and then if the other person isn't playing Trade Routes as their restricted card, maybe it can actually do some damage that way, which is unfortunate. I don't like that. So that sucks. Hopefully choke does not become a thing. And the card's like kind of bad if you don't succeed on the game plan of taking all the opponent's money, so ideally we won't see this actually played. Cape Wrath. This is a 2-cost loyal Baratheon location. During power challenges in which you are the attacking or defending player, raise the claim value on the attacking player's revealed plot card by 1. So this is a card for the sort of power control type of decks. It's also a card for the new version of Stannis, who draws cards equal to your claim value for winning power challenges. But I don't think it really makes the cut. If it just raised your claim and didn't raise the opponent's claim, it would be way better. But for some reason, that's not how it works. It's like a double-edged sword. And I don't think that I think deck space is too limited to play something like this that is like not even necessarily a straight benefit to you, when there's so many other cards you could play that are always just benefiting you and not benefiting your opponent. I give it a very strong maybe for like new Stannis Prince that was promised, so that you can try to always have this new 7-cost Stannis out there to draw cards with this. But really, I don't think this is good and probably shouldn't be played. Dale Seaworth, 3-cost loyal, 3 strength, 2 icons. Captain. I forgot that he's a captain. That's actually matters with the Lysini Galley that's also in this set. Reaction: after you marshal Dale Seaworth, choose a Baratheon location in your discard pile and return it to your hand. So probably a solid one of in a lot of Baratheon decks, especially if you're using like Spears of the Merling King. He obviously goes with that card. Defiance. This is sort of like an anti-Baratheon tech card, I guess. 0-cost event, challenges action, choose and stand a character that has not participated in a challenge this phase, max 1 per phase. So yeah, it's just like an anti-kneel card. The interesting thing with this card is to try to think about characters that kneel to do something really powerful that you could then reuse their ability by standing them up with this card. But I can't really think of what those would be off the top of my head. The fact that it says challenges action prevents you from using it with Sir Ilan Payne. So who knows? Maybe I'll think of something. We have Desperate Attack, a new plot, 2, 0, and 3 claim. 3 claim with 4 reserve. While you're the defending player, raise the claim value on the attacking player's revealed plot card by 1. I don't think this is really going to be usable. I think it's just going in too hard, and I mean 0 initiative, because so you're going to go second, and they're going to get +1 claim on everything before you get to do your challenges. So one thing that I saw is people saying play this in Greyjoy and then do seize the initiative to guarantee that you go first. Maybe that's the thing, but I lean towards this just being too difficult to really leverage without taking a lot of damage in return. The 2 gold is a real killer. If it had like 4 gold or something, maybe it would be a lot more playable. But right now, it feels like Now It Comes to War, the plot where whenever a claim is applied for like an intrigue or power challenge, you can choose to apply military claim instead, but any player can trigger the effect, so your opponent can also do it to you. And it also has terrible stats. And that plot has proven to be basically unplayable, so I would expect this to be a similar situation. Dothraki Steed, 1-cost Targaryen attachment, max 1 per character for some reason. While attached character is attacking, he gets +1 strength, +3 instead if it's a Dothraki. Attachments that only give plus strength and do nothing else are basically always bad. So I give it a Even in Cohort, probably not. This is probably not something that should ever be played. Speaking of cards that will never be played, every captain is a king, 2-cost event until the end of the phase. Each captain character you control gains the king trait and does not kneel when declared as an attacker in power challenges. And it's a Greyjoy event. Yeah, this is pretty pointless. Maybe in Crossing to try to close out the game just because you get the non-kneeling power challenge, but it's still just unnecessary. And again, deck space, like there's either what are you going to cut to put this in? Are you going to cut like We Do Not Sow or something? No, you're not going to. So this probably is never used. Next we have Fields of the Reach. Non-unique Tyrell location, 1 cost. After you win a power challenge, kneel 3 of the Reach locations to raise the claim value on your revealed plot card by 1 until the end of the challenge. Let me go and see if Jousting Pavilion is the Reach. Why is there not a search function on here? Jousting Pavilion. Stop. It is the Reach, and let's see about Rose Garden. I think Rose Garden is the Reach, right? It is. Okay, so going back to Fields of the Reach, maybe you can toss this in the either Banner Tyrell or like the Alliance Banner Rose with Cohort decks and having King at the Wall, and then you drawing a bunch of card off all these cheap non-unique Tyrell locations, and you can actually use this ability because you have a bunch of the Reach locations. Is that actually worth it? I'm not sure, but that's something that you could potentially do. I think that's the only deck that this card ever goes in. I don't even in like Tyrell decks, I'm not sure that you ever use this. I give it a maybe for like Tyrell Lord of the Crossing Knight decks, because then you're playing Jousting Pavilions and you're playing a Rush deck, so getting extra power claim could be pretty decent, I guess. Even then, I give it a maybe. Although I think Jousting Pavilion does not kneel for giving the bonus. I'm actually like 99% sure that it doesn't. Yeah, so you can just kneel Jousting Pavilion with this, and it doesn't matter. That's actually quite nice. So yeah, maybe for like Tyrell Knight's Rush, it's usable. Griffin's Roost Knight, 4 cost, 4 strength, 2 icons. Knight and House Connington. I don't know if we've ever seen the House Connington trait. Interrupt when the challenge phase ends. If you have not lost a power challenge this phase, stand Griffin's Roost Knight. So this is like a dominance bonus card. And I guess I should just go ahead and say one thing that I really like about this box is there's almost no dominance support in this box. I think Griffin's Roost Knight, I forgot that this was even in here until just now, and it's the only card that I can think of that has any dominance synergy at all, which is great because the dominance theme was boring and not fun and encouraged people like to not play the game and to just try and leave everything standing to contest dominance. So I'm really glad that they moved away from that and they're trying to make Baratheon more dynamic. I think it's really good. Like the 4 new Baratheon decks that I'm going to play from this box, none of them are dominance decks. Like none of them have the Iron Throne in them, which makes me happy. I prefer like doing stuff and not having the game plan of I just sit here and passively get power with my Chamber of the Painted Table. I think it's better for the game. Speaking of dominance, though, even in a dominance deck, you probably don't play this. It seems bad. I mean, if it was just interrupt when the challenges phase ends, stand it, period, then maybe it goes in a dominance deck because it's just guaranteed to be +4 for dominance. But the fact that it can just be turned off if you lose a power challenge, and the cost 4 is like an awkward number, I don't think it's good. So we have Hago, a new Blood Rider. 4 cost, 4 strength, 2 icons, Blood Rider Dothraki, and reaction. After you win a challenge in which he's participating, discard a card from your hand to choose a Dothraki card in your discard pile and return it to your hand. So if you ever are playing a Dothraki deck, I think he definitely goes in such a deck because You can switch out cards from your hand that are bad or like that aren't useful at the time for Dothraki characters in your discard that you would rather have available. He could definitely be usable in like a Dothraki theme deck, but I think most Targaryen decks do not have enough Dothraki to really justify him normally. Like you have Kotho, and that might literally be the only Dothraki character that I see in most Targaryen decks. I mean, maybe some use Jogo or something, but even that, probably not. Hightower Knight, House Hightower Knight with this same stat line, 4/4 2 icons. Action, kneel a non-Tyrell Knight to put Hightower Knight into play from your hand. So, probably a character that will be used in Knight banner decks. Like Baratheon Banner Rose Knight decks, this card almost definitely goes in there, because you can kneel what is that thing called? Like Arbor Knights, Vanguard Lancers, Hedge Knights, and you can even like do 2 challenges with Green Apple Knight because it doesn't kneel, and then kneel the Green Apple Knight to put this into play to do power. So definitely a lot of potential there. 4 strength 2 icons coming into play for free, even by kneeling another character, just kneeling like a 2 or 3 cost character to get it. That's very good like value, I think. It will definitely be useful for that type of knight deck. Okay, coffee refill break. One day I will learn to edit these out, I promise. That day is not this day. And let me make sure I'm actually recording, because boy would it be embarrassing if I'm not. Okay, for some reason I was worried that I didn't actually hit the record button. Alright, Hunting Accident. 2 cost Loyal Attachment. Ambush 3 Terminal. Attached character cannot stand. This very well might be the best card in the entire box. And it's kind of sad that the best card in the whole box is Negative Attachment. But let's be honest. This is better than Milk or Craven. Because if you milk something, it loses the ability, but it can still go into challenges as like a 5 strength character or whatever. If you put Craven on something, it can still defend challenges. You put this on something, it's pretty much done, unless they have some way to get rid of it. Like, the vast majority of characters are just totally neutralized by this. So, permanent 3 of in every Baratheon deck, probably. And if Baratheon becomes like significantly stronger and more viable as a result of this box, I think this card will be a major reason why. And just imagine putting this on that stupid 7 cost Victarion. How sad is the Greyjoy opponent going to be if they can't get rid of it? Kingsgrave, 1 cost Martell location. Reaction after you lose a power challenge by 5 or more strength. Kneel and sacrifice Kingsgrave to choose a participating character and return it to its owner's hand. You may kill that character instead if it has the King's trait. This kind of feels like whenever they do a box, the cards that they put in for other factions, they like to make them cards that are supposed to like counter the themes of the box's main faction. So this is like trying to punish Baratheon for doing big power challenges, I guess. The problem with this card is it's just a worse version of Gaston Grey, because this requires you to lose a power challenge by 5 or more strength for the same effect, but it's not cannot be saved. Gaston Grey is just lose any challenge. It doesn't matter what it is or how much you lose it by, and they can't save. Like, dupes don't save from it. And both of them are sacrificed the location to do it. So I don't see why you would ever play this. Gaston Grey is just better. I mean, I guess it's not loyal, so you can put it in other decks besides Martell main faction, but probably doesn't ever make the cut. I mean, it's just too easy to like play around, right? Because, yeah, it's like too likely that it'll just be a dead card and it won't do anything. I mean, you're going up against like Stark Crossing. Well, they're just going to do their power challenge with Arya or Alysanne or whoever, and this card's never going to trigger. Lady Forlorn, 2 cost Valyrian Steel weapon attachment. Attached character gets +1 strength for each neutral location you control. If attached character is Lynn Corbry, he gains a power icon. So if for some reason you were to want to play Lynn Corbry, the prince that was promised, then I guess you play this card. Other than that, never play it. Lion Star, 2 cost Lannister location, warship, and non-loyal. Action, kneel Lion Star to put a Lannister character with printed cost 4 or lower into play from your hand. If it's still in play at the end of the phase, you discard it from play. So I like this card quite a lot. I think this will be potentially very nice as like an alternative rather to the 4-cost Harrenhal. Because you can use it with the Hound, right? And you can use it with those 4-cost Clansman guys. What are they called? Oh, it's terrible that I can't remember what they're called. Maybe Black Ears? No, there's not Black Ears. But you guys probably know the one I mean. It's a 4-cost, 3-strength military and intrigue with ambush 4 and action, return it to your hand to stand another Clansman or Tyrion. And you can return it to your hand to stand itself to get it back out of play after you put it in with a card like this. So I think this is definitely playable in like a Clansman or Jumpers type deck that has those 2 cards in it. And then you can also use it with Flea Bottom, right? Because it discards the character instead of killing it. So you could put, some 2 or 3 cost into play and then it discards into the Flea Bottom pile. Definitely could see some play. And we have Lynn Corbry, neutral 5-cost House Aaron Knight. He's not a lord. I thought this guy was like the heir to the Vale, but who knows? Which is unfortunate because you can't bodyguard him. And he's 4-strength, military, and intrigues. You can see he gets his power icon with his weapon here, Lady Forlorn. After an opponent initiates a power challenge against you, stand Lynn Corbry. So that's cute. He's bad if he doesn't have his weapon because, oh man, he gets to stand when they do a power challenge and he doesn't have a power icon. I guess he does have stealth. I didn't notice that he has stealth, but still. He's bad. Like I said, if for some reason you want to use him with the Prince that was promised and then run Lady Forlorn, then I give him a maybe, but even then, probably bad. I mean, he doesn't have like renown or anything. Lyseni Galley, 1 gold Baratheon warship location. Kneel Lyseni Galley to choose a character. Until the end of the phase, that character gets +1 strength. And then if it's a captain or a smuggler, so where's Dale Seaworth, who has 1 trait, which is captain, so it does work on him, they gain stealth. I think this is bad. I mean, just giving random stealth to stuff. The problem is, like, what are you getting for the stealth and the ability to stealth past people? And Baratheon doesn't have a lot of, like, super punishing effects to make people suffer for, winning some unopposed challenges with stealth, like Greyjoy does. One thing that I did think of is doing, like, Banner of the Kraken and then bringing in Raider from Pike and playing with a pinch of powder and then doing the smuggler thing and having a ton of stealth that way and like bouncing stuff with the pinch and all your power icon stealth or whatever. Maybe that could be a thing, but honestly I think this is probably just not going to be used very much. I did make a Lord of the Crossing smugglers deck, and maybe the stealth matters there to stop people from defending your Lord of the Crossing and like enabling you to rush. And then I put in, superior claim and support of the people to try and capitalize off using stealth to win some big challenges. We'll see if it pulls its weight in that deck. I'm guessing probably not, but if you use it in any decks, it's probably like that deck. Alright, new version of Melisandre. 6 cost, non-loyal, so that's interesting. Lady R'hllor again, 5 strength, these icons. After you win an intrigue challenge in which she's attacking, move 1 power from a character controlled by the losing opponent to Melisandre. Then if that character has no power, kill it. So people were kind of getting hyped about this card. I think it's a trap. I don't think it's very good. I think both existing versions of Melisandre are better than this version. Although she does have stealth. I mean, stealth is a stealthy keyword today. I keep not noticing these characters that randomly have stealth. But still, her ability is too inconsistent and has too many conditions to activate. This is a card that people get hyped about because they see the blowout potential, and they're not thinking about, for every one game where she wins you a game by killing something, there's going to be like 10 games where her ability never does anything and she's just a 6 cost 5 strength with stealth, which, I mean, it's still a body, right? But it's not the most efficient thing that you could be doing, playing a card like that. Because it's like it has to be an intrigue challenge specifically in which she's attacking, and the character that you use her on has to have exactly 1 power. If it was just kill a character an opponent controls with power on it, then I think it would be more usable, because you could have a character that stacked up multiple power, like an opponent's Robert or whatever, and it would always be under threat of dying to her. But the way that it works now, if they just have 2 or more power on them, she can't actually kill the character unless she's able to repeatedly trigger her ability over multiple turns. Although one thing that you can do is combine her with the Stormlands fiefdom to move power off of the character to get them down to 1 so that she can kill it. But still, like, I look at this card and I think about how many potential matchups there are where she just does nothing at all. Like Start Crossing, none of those characters gain power. I mean, I guess Daisy or like Rob, but it's pretty easy for them to play around it and just do challenges with their chumps and their Great John and stuff. Any game against Martell, Targaryen has like Khal Drogo, and they might not even be playing him. There's too much. I mean, Night's Watch, right? Like Night's Watch, they don't gain any power. There's too many matchups where she's just a completely dead card in terms of her ability. So if you are going to use this card and try to make good use of her, you need a way to enable the ability. And so the potential there is with the Starry Sept. And again, I think it is too difficult, too many conditions to pull it off, because you need, first of all, you need 2 specific cards together. You need to have her and the Starry Sept out together. And then you have to win the power challenge to get the power onto the Starry Sept. Then you need to win the intrigue challenge with her to target the opponent's character, and it has to be something that they care about you killing, and so forth and so on. So probably still not worthwhile, but if you're ever going to use her, I think you definitely want the Starry Sept. And I will admit, I've sat here and trash talked this card for the past minute or however long, but I did make a Baratheon Banner of the Sun deck with Desert Raiders and Starry Sept, and she's in there. And we'll see if she does anything. I think if she's ever going to be played, I think Banner of the Sun, just so you can use the Desert Raiders, is the deck for her. And maybe she's actually going to pull her weight in that deck, where you have 2 potential activators for the ability. We'll find out. But enough about her. One thing, though, look at that art. Man, that's some nice art. Look at her. I have to say, I think this Melisandre does have the best art. The 7 cost one has pretty good art, too. Nightfire Vision, 0 cost loyal Baratheon event. Play only if you control a lore character. Taxation action, name a trait. If an opponent reveals a plot card with that trait during the next plot phase, draw 3 cards. It just depends on how consistent it is to activate this. So I need to go down the list of commonly played plots and see which traits they all share. But I think there is potential with this card for you to just say Kingdom, and there's enough plots with the Kingdom trait that get played a lot that it's worth it. Because if the opponent, let's say I say Kingdom and they were going to play a Kingdom, so then they don't play a Kingdom because I say Kingdom, this card is still worth it then, because disrupting their plot choice for a 0 cost event is very worthwhile. That's definitely worth it. And if it actually draws you the 3 cards, then it's also definitely worth it. A 0 cost event that draws 3 cards is 100% worth playing. The issue is just how consistently you can nail that trait down. So it's going to come down to that. I'll probably end up trying it at some point, and we'll see if I'm able to do anything with it. So here we have Outwit, 3/0/1 5 reserve scheme. Interrupt when the effects of a when revealed ability would initiate, kneel your faction card, and a unique Maester character to cancel those effects. So maybe this gets played in Conclave, just because you are forced to use 10 Maesters anyways. So the requirement to kneel a unique Maester is not a burden. I think in any deck besides Conclave, this never gets played because it's not worth it to run enough. I mean, like, most factions, how many unique Maesters they even have available? Not that many, unless you start throwing in like Archmaester Ebros or something, and it's not worth playing bad cards just to enable this. But in Conclave, potentially a powerful option. I mean, imagine canceling trade routes, right? That's potentially game winning, or at least like something that could swing the game in your favor. Canceling Valar Morghulis, canceling draw plots, canceling all kind of stuff. Could be pretty good. So whenever I get around to Conclave, this will probably be something I try. Parlay at Storm's End. Finally, Baratheon has a useful faction unique plot. So this is a Baratheon plot, 4/4/1/6 reserve, Siege War. And when revealed, name a challenge type. Until you reveal a new plot card, challenges of that type cannot be initiated. So get screwed, Sea of Blood. I am not sure about this card. It's definitely better than the friggin' King's Peace. That's for sure. Still not sure if it's worth it. So if you expect to see a lot of Sea of Blood, it's obviously probably worth playing to counter that. But if the opponent does not have a specific challenge type that you need to shut down and prevent, then I think it's actually not that good. Because it's a double-edged effect. Like, if I say power challenge, I can't do any power challenges either. And that kind of sucks. Maybe actually this is like low-key a dominance support card, because if you're trying to play passively and just win dominance, you can play this plot and just like pick whatever challenge the opponent would most like to do against you, and it sort of like slows the game down and stops them from doing stuff while you sit there and do your dominance thing. Maybe it sees play in dominance decks. We'll see. Maybe it's also kind of a plot that you use to try and stop crossing, because it stops them from doing 3 challenges. So maybe it's a plot to slow down crossing. Again, I'm not really sure. We'll find out. Maybe like Baratheon Knights of the Hollow Hill, if that's ever somehow a deck. Maybe you play this to slow people down. Anyways, Prince's Attendant, Martell card, 2 cost, 2 strength intrigue, ally. Marshalling action, kneel Prince's Attendant to reduce the cost of the next Martell Lord or Lady. You marshal this phase by 2. I like this card because it encourages Martell to do something besides lame out attrition strategies. I always liked playing Martell Lords and Ladies, and this is a great card to support that type of deck. As we know from the 1-cost reducers, cheap characters that reduce other characters are obviously worth playing, and this is like a reducer on steroids, just as long as you're playing Martell Lords or Ladies. I already like the 7-cost Ariane, so this slots in very nicely to a 7-cost Ariane deck, because you're going to be marshalling her repeatedly if you use her ability. And so every turn that this guy is around, you can use him to reduce Ariane and replay her again. So definitely has potential. Okay, I think I'm finally done drinking coffee. So Protectors of the Realm, 5-cost Night's Watch Army. Non-loyal, strength X. X is your reserve value. Bad, never use it. Moving on. Rationing, plot 5/5/1 Edict Winter, 5 reserve. Players cannot trigger reactions to winning or losing challenges. This is interesting. Again, this is like an anti, like, sort of tech card to shut down stuff like Sea of Blood, or actually I don't think this stops Cohor though, which is pretty depressing, because Cohor is like a reaction to claim being applied. It's not a reaction to winning or losing the challenge. But again, this could be used to stop maybe Greyjoy crossing decks, or at least like slow them down. I mean, they can't play We Do Not So, I guess. I don't know. Like, I see potential. There's so many things that it blocks, but it's just trying to think about how consistent is it going to be. Because again, I mean, this plot deck space is so tight. You only have 7 of them, and you really don't want to spend any of those on a plot that has any kind of like existent chance to be a dead plot and not have an effect. Although the stats are pretty good, but still, you really don't want to have a blank plot in your plot deck. So if you really expect to see whatever type of deck that this can potentially like slow down or counter, then maybe you put it in. And it's nice that it's a winter plot because maybe it makes Kings of Winter slightly more playable, although probably not. Another unfortunate thing about this plot is that it doesn't stop Lord of the Crossing because Lord of the Crossing is all passive text, which I think is a side effect of how early Lord of the Crossing was printed. There's like a first cycle agenda. I think if Lord of the Crossing was printed now, they would make it more consistent with the other agendas, and it would say, like, you know, in the bold text, reaction, after you win the third challenge you initiated this phase, claim 1 power, and then rationing could counter it. Unfortunately, does not counter it the way that things work now, which is a pretty big strike against this plot, because like Lord of the Crossing is probably one of the top agendas right now, so that would be, you know, a pretty good reason to use this, but oh well. I guess it still stops Superior Claim. It also stops a lot of Martell BS, stops Dorn, stops Desert Raider, stops his Viper Eyes, all that type of stuff. So if you hate Martell, maybe you can use this. Next we've got the Red Priest. This is one of the best characters in the box. It might be the second best cheap character after Sir Emery Florent. It's definitely really good. After Red Priest enters play, look at an opponent's hand, then choose 1 card in their hands and remove it from the game until Red Priest leaves play. So 3 cost, 2 strength, military, intrigue, lore, and just nuke a card out of their hand for free when he enters play. Super duper good. Like, this is worth using in Baratheon decks, even if you don't have any Relore synergy, just because the ability is that good. I mean, it's like almost like a free Scene in Flames for no reason. This is a pretty damn good card. Okay, now we're really getting into the money cards. New version of Renly Baratheon is about damn time, and this version of Renly is just a big ol' slap in the face to the core set version. So 6 costs, only 3 strength, still has 3 icons, but Lord and King with Renown, and action, kneel your faction cards who put a non-Baratheon character with printing cost X or lower into play from your hand. X is Renly Baratheon strength. I really like this card. Obviously designed to go with Tyrell because it's Renly and he's like a Tyrell, but he's still a Baratheon character, so gives you a reason to actually be Baratheon and not, you know, just play Tyrell main faction. But he still goes with Tyrell main faction because he's non-loyal, so he's still great in that deck, but like, he can go in Baratheon main faction Banner of the Rose deck really nicely. Because you start boosting his strength up with, you know, Hightower Spy or something, and then you're kneeling your faction cards to put Randall Tarley into play for free. It's pretty damn good. I mean, whatever he puts into play, it just stays there. He just puts it into play. So the potential for this card is obvious. Even without any strength buffs, kneeling your faction cards to put a 2 or 3 cost character into play, if you do it multiple times, is like definitely worth it and makes him a pretty good, strong, efficient character, I think. And there's a lot of potential, like, actually, you know, it would be hard to go down the list and think of all the different ways that you could use this ability. One, probably the top thing that comes to mind right off the top of my head is Begging Brother, because Begging Brother is cost 3, and you can just slap a Begging Brother into play, and the fact that you're getting the Begging Brother into play for free helps you afford the bestow on the Begging Brother and load it up with 2 or 3 gold. And I think that is a pretty strong play with this Renly that doesn't require any strength boosts. And this Renly is also like a reason to actually play that Lysini Galley card because it gives +1 strength, so it can help enable his ability. I don't know. This is good. This card has a lot of potential for banner decks. I like it. And even for like Brotherhood or Faith Militant decks, right, where you have a bunch of neutral characters, you could start using this guy. And he's also a king, so now you can go triple kings in Baratheon. Definitely a triple kings deck, I think, should be a thing at some point. Alright, new version of Robert. This is, if not the best new character in the box, it's definitely like top 3, at least for Baratheon characters. This guy's pretty damn good, and if he's not the best character, then probably the main reason that he's not is because of his name, so he prevents you from using the other best Baratheon character. But I think this card might actually be better than the core set Robert. I've only played a few games with him, but he felt very powerful in the games that I played. So Lord King Renowned 7/5, loyal of course as he should be, and reaction after the standing phase begins, choose one. Other characters with printed cost 5 or higher cannot stand, characters with printed cost 4 or lower cannot stand, or locations cannot stand. So you just marshal him and just every round pick whichever one of these benefits you more. 90% of the time you're going to be choosing one of the top two options, but if you run into Night's Watch, you can use the bottom option, and if they can't like milk him or something, that's it. They're never going to be triggering their wall again, and I guess they just lose. So that's also potentially pretty damn good. Another thing that would be kind of funny to do with this card is to try and make a deck where you only use gold bonuses on your locations. So, or like locations that don't repeatedly kneel. So you could do like Rose Road, Kingsgate, Stormlands, Fiefdom, Gates of the Moon. And so none of your locations actually kneel to give you gold. And then you just spam the locations cannot stand to stop the opponent's economy. That's probably too much of a meme to be worth it, but it's something that you could try. But basically, you can just marshal this guy, and just whichever one of the first two options is better for you, you just pick it. And like I had a game where, I started off characters with printed cost 4 or lower cannot stand, and just the way the board had worked out, that like knelt 3 of his cards out of 4, and only 1 of mine out of 4. And then later in the game, the board state sort of flipped, and he had more bigger characters that I didn't want to deal with, and I just flipped over to saying other characters with printed cost 5 or higher cannot stand, and I think it kneeled like 3 characters that cost 5 or higher on his side, which is insane how powerful that is. I mean, it totally shut down his board. He couldn't do anything, and I won the game because of it. I mean, that was just crazy strong. So yeah, this guy, absolutely worth using. Alright, new version of Salador San. 5 cost, 3 strength, 3 icons. 3 icons is very nice. Captain Smuggler, and reaction, after you marshal a Smuggler character, choose a kneel location, then gain gold equal to that location's printed cost. Limit once per round. So, interesting card. It just depends on whether the Smuggler trait is a thing or not. I guess if you are going to play a Smuggler deck, then, throw him in there and give him a try. I think if somehow, like, a deck with a bunch of cards with the Smuggler trait ends up being, like, good enough to be playable, then this card will probably be in that deck. But otherwise, probably not worth it. Because if you're not using the ability, then, even though he has 3 icons, 5 for 3 with no keywords or text is, like, not great. Why are you playing that? Now we have the new version of Selyse Baratheon. 4 cost, House Florent, Lady, Queen, R'hllor. Quite a set of traits there. And all 4 of these traits can be relevant in combination with other cards from the set. Lady and R'hllor are obvious. Queen goes with the Stormlands, and House Florent goes with the Leicester Florent. So quite a set of traits she has. But yeah, 4, 3, non-loyal, and reduce the cost of each R'hllor attachment you marshal by 3. So this is a card to enable you to do like Azor Ahai Reborn, and then stuff like, Lightbringer, and what is it called? Red God's Blessing, even Light of the Lord if you wanted to. Glamour, if you wanted to get extra spicy, Ruby of R'hllor, start playing some really bad cards. Unfortunately, I think that the R'hllor attachments are just not good enough to justify this card. Like, maybe she's worth it with Azor Ahai Reborn, but that's the only R'hllor attachments I can think of that is seriously worth it, and Lightbringer. I'll also grant Lightbringer. But that's like 2 attachments, 2 cards out of the whole game, and I don't think the other R'hllor attachments really make the cut. If they did, then maybe she'd be worth using, but as is, probably just not quite there. But if you did want to make like a sort of R'hllor Voltron deck that just uses all those high-cost R'hllor attachments, then sure, she does go in that deck. She does make them a lot more playable. I guess if you wanted to be extra spicy, you could even do Prince That Was Promised with this character to try and guarantee getting her into play, and then allowing you to spam those R'hllor attachments out for free. I don't think that's good, but maybe you could try it. Now we have the new version of Sir Davos Seaworth. He's Knight, Smuggler, and the 7. He's not a Lord, but he's now the 7. So Baratheon Faith Militant, I guess that's a thing now, right? He's loyal, interesting, and military and intrigue. Switched out his power icon for an intrigue. He has stealth, as usual, and reaction. After you win a challenge in which he's participating, discard 1 power from the losing opponent's faction card. Then you may have a king character you control gain 1 power. So definitely worth using him. We'll see some play, I think. If you compare him to the Bastard of God's Grace, instead of moving the power to your faction card, it just discards the opponent's power, but the character has stealth. And has the intrigue icon, which is arguably like more significant for Baratheon, because they typically have more trouble finding good intrigue icons than they do power icons. And has the potential to also gain you the power to basically be sort of like the Bastard and give you like a 1 power swing in your favor. They lose 1, you gain 1, if you have a king to gain 1 power. Also, the way that the wording works is this works with like Sir Justin Massey and Lightbringer. You can use this to trigger those cards, which you don't really need the ability because those cards trigger themselves, but I mean, maybe it's something that matters at some point. So definitely think this card will see some play. Is he better than the core set Davos? Maybe. I actually think this might be the best version of him. I mean, if you're using at least 2 king characters, then I think he's pretty good. Now we have Sir Gregor Clegane. This is a 4-cost 6 strength, so he has the Small John Umber stats. House Clegane Knight, Intimidate, Pillage. So 4 for 6 with Intimidate, but forced reaction after you win a challenge in which he's participating, choose and kill a character you control. This is not worth it. Even like getting that Intimidate is not worth killing your own characters every round, so don't expect that this will ever be played. Like, I'm trying to think of some sort of weird janky combo where you're killing characters that you want to die somehow, but just no. I think it's just a hard no. Maybe if you want to get extra janky, you go Greyjoy, Banner of the Lion, Drown God, and use this to kill your own Drown God characters. But in that case, you need to find 9 other Lannister cards to play, so probably still not worth it. Sir Imry Florent. So this is also, I think, top 3 best characters in the box. 3 cost, 2 strength Knight, and House Florent. With action, kill Sir Imry Florent to choose an opponent. You may sacrifice any number of locations. For each location sacrificed this way, that opponent must choose and kneel a standing character he or she controls. So when I first looked at this card, I was a bit confused. I was like, well, this is weird. What are you really doing with this guy? And then I realized that what you do is you just, in the late game, when you're getting close to winning and you just need that 1 turn to close it out, you use his ability and you just win. And he's really good. So, because the issue I was thinking about was, well, you're killing your own character and sacking your own locations to gain a temporary advantage. But that's really damn powerful when you're gaining, like, when you're potentially going to win the game off of it. And I've even had a game where, I mean, I just sacrificed 3 of my economy locations on like turn 2 or 3 to guarantee that I could get through a really important power challenge that like stole the opponent's, what is that card? Fickle Bannerman, I think it was, or something like that. And it swung the game into my favor, even though I sacked 3 of my own economy locations. Like, having the potential to just kneel the opponent's entire board whenever you feel like doing it is just so strong. I think he's definitely worth it. The main limitation is that using his ability kills him. So you can only use him once in most games unless you're playing like Close Call or something. One thing that you could potentially do, which again I'm not sure if this is good, but it would be funny, is play him with the Prince that was promised. So you kill him, then you trigger the Prince that was promised to get him back to your hand out of the dead pile, and you just use him again. And since his ability is kneeling the opponent's entire board, that should make it easy for you to win a power challenge by 5 and trigger the Prince agenda. Now, of course, the issue there is how are you going to have enough locations to sacrifice to keep using him? But maybe you run like 25 locations with King's Landing or something. Play 3 copies of Dale Seaworth. Probably not good, but would be funny. But I think this guy is one of, maybe even 2 of, in every Baratheon deck. Because he's just like such a generally powerful card. So next we have She-Bear. This is a new start character. 3 cost, 3 strength, House Mormont, only military icon, so pretty bad stats, but reaction after you marshal She-Bear, you may put a start character or attachment with printed cost 3 or lower into play from your hand. So obviously a lot of potential for really good value here. You just marshal her and then you slap in Alyssane, Arya, Summer. You know, even a 2-cost character like Bran or whatever is pretty good value with this card. It's basically just a free character. Like if you have another 2 or 3 cost character that you wanted to marshal anyways, then having this card in your hand basically lets you get an extra body into play for free, which is unfortunate because with the new restricted list, they didn't touch Stark, and Stark was like at least on par with Greyjoy already, so now Stark's like probably the best faction. And the preferred Stark deck is Crossing, especially now the Sea of Blood is restricted, it's Stark Crossing. And this deck, this card absolutely goes in Crossing because it's like a tempo advantage card. It helps you dump all your hand out really fast. So that doesn't make me happy. And it's House Mormont, so it also goes with the Bear Island Scout. Like, did Stark really need this? On the other hand, it could be overkill in the sense of like if you're able to just dump your hand out easily enough anyways, then it's not that great. But still, I think that it's probably pretty good and we'll see some play. I think I'll definitely have it in some Stark decks. I mean, the fact that you can get it with the Bear Island Scout, just that really I think puts it over the top and makes it a pretty good card. Now we have Shira Errol, 2 cost, single power icon, 2 strength lady. So this helps to power, what is that card? Heir to the Iron Throne, if you ever feel like playing that in Baratheon. Interrupts when a character is killed, sacrifice Shira Errol to move each power from that character to its controller's faction card. So you sack her to save power on your character, basically, when they die, to like Valar Morghulis, I guess. Pretty bad, in my opinion. Pretty specific when this card would ever matter or have like a good ability. I think the actual value of this card, like I said, is just Heir to the Iron Throne. Like if you want to play Heir to the Iron Throne in Baratheon, you have this character in there with like Corset Shireen, Corset Selyse, and stuff like that. Siege Preparations. We have a new draw plot. 3/1/1 6 reserve. Siege trait, and then Dominance action, draw cards until your hand size is equal to your reserve value. Limit once per phase, I guess, to stop some type of weird combo from going on. So this needs to draw at least 4 to really be better than Counting Coppers, because Counting Coppers having 1 less gold in exchange for getting the cards immediately instead of basically getting them delayed by a turn is definitely a worthwhile trade-off. If this can draw 4, consistently rather, draw 4 or more cards though, then maybe it's worth it. So the first potential is to boost your reserve value. So maybe like the Night's Watch deck where you're boosting your reserve, or like Martell where you're playing the Summer Seaports, maybe you can play this. And then the second thing though is you need to be able to dump out your hand really consistently, because you need to, like, it draws more cards the smaller your hand is. So what you do is dump out everything that you can, and then you play this. So I think what I'm going to try with this card is in like trade routes decks. You know, trade routes, play out everything that I possibly can get away with, and then try to flip this and try to go down to like 1 or even 0 cards in hand for this dominance action to draw 5 or 6. And then I can trade routes again next turn if I want to. I think that will make this card potentially playable, potentially powerful. New version of Stannis, 7 cost, 7 strength, so he's quite a big boy. Lord, King, and R'hllor. R'hllor trait is nice. And Loyal, reaction, after you win a power challenge, draw X cards. X is the claim value on the attacking player's revealed plot card, and he's immune to opponent's events. I am pretty underwhelmed by this card, because even though he's big and scary with his 7 strength, and I mean he has useful traits with like King and R'hllor, the ability is just underwhelming. You know, after you win a power challenge, draw a card basically. And again, you can try to get cheeky and combine him with Cape Wrath to draw 2 cards, but is it worth playing Cape Wrath so that this one specific character will draw more cards? Like, you're playing a bad card so that you can draw an extra card. That kind of cancels itself out, right? Because you could just be playing a good card instead of Cape Wrath. And it's not even guaranteed to work, you know. You have to play Cape Wrath and then win power challenges with this character in play. So I'm not sure about this guy whatsoever. The immune to opponents' events keyword is cute, but let's be honest, there's going to be a lot of games where that does absolutely nothing. He would definitely be better if he had like Renown or Intimidate or something. So I don't know. I'm a bit sad. I don't think he's very good. I think either of the existing versions of Stannis, like, he's not clearly better than either one of them. Maybe he's better than the core set version, just because the core set version is pretty inconsistent. But again, I'm not sure. I don't like him. I guess he's better than the core set version just because he's a king, but unfortunate. One day Stannis will get a good card. One day. The hand's tourney, 5/2/1 Kingdom Summer Plot with 7 reserve for some reason. Has a lot of reserve. Forced Interrupt. When claim is applied for a military challenge, apply power claim instead. So definitely has potential to be used. So first of all, Baratheon, one problem that Baratheon consistently has had is just dealing with military claim, because they had such a bad, like, low end. Their claim soak characters, like their cheap characters, have traditionally been so bad, and like you don't want to play very many of them. And you know, they don't have a bunch of in-faction saves. They're not really a good flea bottom faction, and so forth and so on. So this is one way to try to play around that, because you know you can nullify the military claim. So maybe you use it in that situation. But in terms of playing this plot in general, again, like, I'm not really sure. I guess for like a dominance deck, this could be similar to the parlay at Storm's End, where you just use this so that the opponent can't use military claim. So a similar reason to Night's Watch always packing Maester Aemon, to just nullify the military challenge and help you to sit there and force the opponent to like respect your game plan and not be able to really damage you by doing challenges. Maybe it's worth playing for that type of effect. We'll see. Next we have the Hollow Hill. I'm glad they released this right when I'm coming up on the Brotherhood agenda. So 2-cost neutral location, dominance action. If you control no loyal characters, kneel the Hollow Hill to search the top 10 cards of your deck for a non-loyal character, reveal it and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. So this is a card for Brotherhood, and I think it goes in every Brotherhood deck, because searching the top 10 for whatever character you think is best every turn is pretty strong card advantage. I mean, that's damn good, because you can just consistently pull out your threats. You can consistently go and grab Jack and Hagar, or friggin' like Rattleshirt, or whatever big character that you want to use to smack people around. This 6-cost Renly Baratheon that's in this box, you can just go and grab him with this. I think this is, this definitely is a boost to the Brotherhood agenda, and I will be playing it. And it's hard to find a deck that it goes in besides Brotherhood, because the condition of not having any loyal characters, like, you could put it in other decks that you just don't put any loyal characters in them, but at that point, why would you not just play Brotherhood? I don't know. But I think it has potential for Brotherhood. So, new Night's Watch event, the Horn that Wakes the Sleepers. Reaction: after an opponent initiates a challenge against you, choose and stand a Builder character, a Ranger character, and a Steward character. So, sort of a 1-cost event that can stand multiple characters when the opponent initiates a challenge. Probably bad. It's just, like, what are you really accomplishing with this? It's too specific. Trying to think of a situation where this does a lot of work is too specific, if that makes sense. Because if you're playing a Night's Watch defense deck to begin with, then you're probably just not going to be declaring that many challenges in the first place, so being able to stand stuff is like, who cares? Again, it feels like a card that they threw in because it's supposed to like counter the Baratheon theme of kneeling. Because if Baratheon kneels your guys, then tries to do a challenge, you can play this event to stand up the guys that they knelt. So maybe if you just hate Baratheon, you play this card. But other than that, I don't think it's much good. I don't think it should really be played. Now we have the New Gods, a new plot, which is definitely interesting. It's a 7 plot, so 6/4/1 4 reserve, and each of the 7 character you control does not kneel when declared as an attacker in the first challenge you initiate during the challenges phase. So obviously this is a boost to the Faith Militant agenda. 6 gold makes it very playable. I mean, even with 4 reserve, a 6 gold plot with this effect can definitely be used with the Faith Militant, and potentially makes that agenda better. Another thing that you can do with it is you can go Brotherhood and just play a bunch of neutral to 7 characters, and then whatever like keyword that you bestow onto one of those characters with your Brotherhood agenda, you get to use it twice with this plot. So you can get like double Intimidate or double Insight or something, and that could be pretty good too. So I think this plot definitely has some potential. I like them releasing cards like this that like can buff decks or agendas that don't get used very often. Now we have the new agenda, the Prince That Was Promised. After all agendas are announced, name a unique character. You guys know how this works. Other characters you control can't gain power. In reaction, after you win a power challenge by 5 or more strength, kneel your faction card to either stand the named character and draw a card, or search your deck, discard, and dead pile for the named character, reveal it, add it to your hand, and shuffle. Yeah, what an agenda, huh? I like this agenda. I mean, compare it to Sea of Blood. It's kind of like the counterpart to Sea of Blood, because Sea of Blood is like win a military by 5 to delete the opponent's board, and this is win a power by 5 to build up your own side of the board. And oh goodness, I've been talking for too long. We're almost done though. I like this type of proactive agenda a lot better than sort of the delete the opponent's board type of stuff that you see with Sea of Blood or Free Folk. I like building an engine on my own side of the board and then like smashing it against the opponent's engine and seeing which one of us like has the better engine. That's the sort of more interesting way to play the game, in my opinion. It has more interaction, it feels like, more decision points, generally speaking. So I'm a pretty big fan of this agenda. I mean, and it seems pretty well designed, because to use it you have to win a power by 5 or more strength and deal your faction cards. So it has a cost associated with it in terms of like, if the opponent just tries to stop you from winning a power by 5, they can shut down the agenda. But unlike Sea of Blood, if you do manage to trigger the agenda, it's potentially powerful, but it doesn't win you the game on the spot. It doesn't have that huge snowball potential that Sea of Blood has, where it's like, oh man, they were able to trigger it one freaking time, and that's going to make it exponentially easier for them to trigger it again next turn, and then it just like snowballs out of control and everything on your side is dead. So I think it's definitely a well-balanced, interesting agenda, and just the sheer potential of like how many different types of decks you could try with this, since it can just be any unique character. You know, the possibilities literally are almost endless. So that's pretty cool as well. Like, I already played a game against this agenda, and the opponent was able to trigger it once, and then I was able to stop them from triggering it on turns subsequent to that one, and I was eventually able to win the game. Like, they triggered it once, and it was a nice bonus when they were able to do it, but they didn't just win the game because they triggered the agenda once, and I was able to still come back into it. So that says to me that it's pretty balanced. And then, like I said, I'm going to be making a deck with this agenda for every faction, and every faction probably has more than one deck that goes with this agenda. I mean, just imagine all the characters that you can name with this. You know, Lannister, you say Tywin. Greyjoy, you say 7-cost Victarion. Martell, I'm actually not sure what you say, but maybe you say like Corset Red Viper and make like a Viper Voltron deck. Yeah, because I mean, also the effect stands the name character. So characters that do something really powerful when they win a challenge, you can try to like use them twice. So like Greyjoy, 7-cost Asha, she could be the prince, and you could like try to do 2 challenges with her every turn. Targaryen, Corset Daenerys, I mean, the possibilities just go on. Tyrell, Renly Baratheon, and that's just the big 6 and 7 obvious characters. You can also imagine trying to make some super weird decks with this. Like I said, you could say like Sir Imry Florent. I saw someone saying that they made this deck with cold hands. I don't know how the heck that would work, but I guess maybe that could be a thing. You know, we'll see what it does. Definitely an interesting agenda. I like it. So now we have the Stormlands. Baratheon finally gets a 4-cost location. Loyal Baratheon location, 4 costs. You may initiate an additional power challenge. In reaction, after you win a power challenge, kneel to Stormlands to choose and stand a participating king or queen. I am not sure how I feel about this. I think, you know, if you have a king character, Or I guess if you have a queen, but like what queens are available to you? I think the only one is Celise, and you know standing Celise is whatever. If you have a king character and you can trigger the reaction to do 2 power challenges with that king character, then this is probably pretty powerful and probably worth it. But 4 cost is really damn expensive. And so, is it really worth it? I mean, I guess we'll find out. I think I did make a deck with this card in like 2 or even maybe 3 kings. And we'll just see if it pulls its weight or not. Like, I think the jury is out. I'm not willing to say that it's necessarily bad or good yet. Maybe you use it in crossing decks? I don't know. It could also be pretty good with Sir Courtney Penrose, I guess. And I think it also has some natural synergy with the Prince that was promised, because the Prince that was promised is you win a power by 5 or more strength, you stand your Prince character, who is presumably a big power icon, and then you do another power challenge since you have the Stormlands. And if your Prince character is also a king, then you can stand them again after doing a challenge with the Stormlands. And another thing to think about actually is you can use this with King at the Wall to bestow the king trait onto somebody. So it maybe could also be good in like the Banner Rose type stuff. Anyways, unlikely champion, neutral 3 cost knight, military and intrigue icon. While you control a lord or lady character, unlikely champion gains a power icon. So 3 cost 3 icons, but 1 less strength than cost. I guess he's okay. I'm not sure if he makes the cut in a Knights deck, but maybe he's playable in Knights. I think another deck where you might use him is like Brotherhood Without Banners, where you have enough lords and ladies to support the ability. Especially if you think about like a Brotherhood Without Banners deck with the Renly from this box. You can put this guy into play for free with Renly, and he has 3 icons since, you know, Renly's a lord. And maybe that's worth it. So that could make him playable. So I think he has potential to be played in those decks. Maybe he's worth it. Warhammer. This is an interesting attachment. 1 cost weapon attachment. If attached character's printed strength is 4 or lower, it gets +2 strength. If attached character's printed strength is 5 or higher, it gains intimidate. So plus strength attachments are bad. So the attraction on this card is the intimidate. 1 cost to give a character intimidate could absolutely be worth it if you have enough strength 5 characters to support the attachment, because intimidate is pretty damn good. I know in Tyrell, getting an intimidate for 1 gold with the Lord Renly's Ride can definitely be strong and worth using, and that's only for 1 turn. This Warhammer gives something permanent intimidate, and it can go on any character. It doesn't have any restrictions. So you can put it on characters that can attack multiple times, such as the Corset Asha Greyjoy, if you do like Banner of the Kraken, and then you do 2 challenges with her and she has stealth and intimidate, and that's really nasty. Because I mean, compare that to like Great John Umber, right? Who has pretty similar stats and is noteworthy for being a dude with intimidate that does 2 challenges and just wins games. So that could be a thing. One thing that is notable about the strength 4 or lower gets +2 strength effect is that you can put it on the Renly from this box, and he goes up to 5 strength and becomes significantly stronger, because now he can put all kinds of spicy stuff into play for free. Imagine a Banner of the Sun deck where you put this on the King Renly from this box. You use that Renly to put Ariane Martell into play for free from the core set. You do a challenge with her. You use her ability to put another 5 cost character into play, and it stays in play, and you got that extra challenge out of core set Ariane. So that would just be nutty. And you have, Renly himself sitting there as a 5 strength 3 icons. That would be really dank. So I think this actually has some potential. It's also like a very cute card for Baratheon Cohort, because Intimidate is after the Cohort agenda, it's after Claim. So you can like win a challenge, trigger Cohort, put this into play, and intimidate something all in 1 challenge. And obviously, that could be pretty dope. So yeah, this is a cool little card, I guess. And again, like another funny combo, you can do Banner of the Kraken. And I was really tempted to do this. If I was going to make a 5th Baratheon deck based on this box, I think it would be Banner of the Kraken with Raider from Pike and this card, so that you could ambush this thing in for 1 gold when they're not expecting it and get a surprise intimidate. And that would be funny. But enough of that. Last card in the box, Wily Smuggler. It's a pretty underwhelming card to go out on, but At least it's 2 cost, right? 2 cost, 1 strength, 2 icon smuggler, and loyal for some reason. Not sure if it really needed to be loyal. But I guess technically it's a draw card, so it has to be loyal. Action, choose 1 card from your hand and place it on top of your deck. Then at the end of the phase, draw 1 card. Limit once per round. Too bad that it's loyal, because otherwise you could like banner it into Tyrell for Old Town. But aside from that, I don't see what the point of this card is. It can protect cards in your hand from Intrigue Claim. That is, I guess, the use of it. So like if you're going to lose an Intrigue challenge, whatever card you don't want to lose, you use this action to protect it on top of your deck. But is that really worth it? I mean, I don't know if I don't think it's really that worth it of an ability. And I've really sat here and tried to think of other ways to make use of this, but I just can't think of any. I mean, I guess with Mark Mullendore, right? So you like banner Tyrell and use this with Mark Mullendore, and there's blowout potential there, but that's still a very specific combo and going to be kind of janky to actually pull it off. So who knows? I think if this card gets played, it's not really because of the ability, and more because it's a 2 cost character with 2 icons and the smuggler trait. So like if you want to have some smugglers and play the Lysini Galley, you can turn this into a 2 strength, 2 icons, 2 cost with stealth and smuggler trait, then it's worthwhile because it's like a cheap character to round out your curve that has some pretty relevant synergies with your deck. So I put this in my like Lord of the Crossing smugglers deck because it's just a 2 cost non-unique smuggler that I can marshal for Salador, and then I can give it stealth with the Lysini Galley, and we'll see if that's really worth it. I mean, if nothing else, like I said, at least it's only 2 cost. So that makes it sort of efficient. So yeah, man, we did it. That's the whole box. How much longer than an hour is the video? Oh, it's an hour and 16. It's probably my longest review yet. It's disgusting. If you actually watch to the end, you're a champ. I mean, my voice is tired, so I'm sure you're ready for this to be over. Last word on the box, really like it. None of the cards feel like broken or stupid or overpowered. I don't feel like any of these necessarily need to be restricted right away like I did with the Greyjoy box, where, I mean, Sea of Blood in particular looked really stupid, and the 6 cost Euron looked really stupid and ended up being really stupid. There's nothing that looks quite on that level in this box, but there's still a lot of like cards that are very usable and will provide nice boosts to Baratheon specifically, but also to some other factions got some pretty usable cards. And there's some cards that boost like decks or themes that aren't used very often and which I think are fun and would like to like see them be more viable and more playable because I think they're sort of fun decks like Faith Militant and Brotherhood. So overall, definitely gets my stamp of approval. Good job, Fantasy Flight. You did good for once. You did good. Now watch me be proven wrong and like somehow, there's multiple cards that are super broken and Baratheon's like way overpowered and, everything has to be restricted. That would be funny, but I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah. More videos coming soon. That's that. Signing off.